I've really been looking forward to making this video because I haven't been this excited about a tool in a long time. In fact, I think the last thing I found that had this much of an impact on my workflow was probably the camera that I'm filming this with right now, which is the Canon 6D Mark II. And what I'm talking about today is my new favorite thing, which is the Rodecaster Pro. And basically, this is an all-in-one podcast production studio in one little device right here. And as somebody who has set up several different podcasting studios at a couple of the schools that I've worked at over the years and a broadcast studio, there's so much that goes in to anything like that. There's just so many different parts and pieces of equipment and wiring, and it's always a lot of work. And this thing is like revolutionary. I haven't found anything quite like it, and this is in definitely no way a sponsored video. I paid for this with my own money, and it was back ordered, and I had to wait a really long time for it to actually show up. But it showed up, and I've been using it for several weeks, and wow, I really like it. So I wanted to kind of explain why I think that it is so fantastic. So the reason that I was even interested in this Rodecaster in the first place was that at the beginning of 2019, I finally started a podcast, because why not wait until the market is super duper saturated and then just jump in, you know, with no idea of really what to do. But this actually isn't a shameless plug for the podcast. That was just sort of the catalyst for me wanting to improve my audio production equipment. And when I started the podcast, I didn't want to invest any money in equipment because I didn't know if I was going to like it. I didn't know if it was something I was going to keep doing. So I wanted to just work with what I had. And that's probably the first thing that I want to point out is if you want to do a podcast, you do not need to buy anything. Just start making your podcast. And so what I actually started off with was using the Zoom H4n, and then I just plugged the Rode VideoMic Pro that I use to film all my videos into the back of the Zoom H4n, and that was how I did my podcast. And what I learned about the Rode VideoMic Pro is that when you have it pretty close to you, the audio quality is really good. And so I was really happy with that audio quality. But the problem came when I wanted to incorporate more than one microphone, when I wanted to do interviews. The Zoom H4n does have two XLR ports, but the controls for adjusting the different levels on the two mics isn't really the most intuitive. And if you want to start having more than two people, it becomes a bit of a hassle. And Zoom does make a couple of other audio recorders that have multiple XLR inputs, but they range in like the $300-400 price range. And I didn't really want to spend that much money on just a dedicated multi-track recorder when I already have this one. But the point I want to make is that you do not need to buy anything. Even if you don't have an audio recorder lying around at home, chances are you do have a phone, and in many cases, the earbuds and the voice memo app that already is on your phone is more than enough to produce a great sounding podcast. It's much more about your ideas and your perspective than the equipment that you're using to make that. And then you can adjust your workflow later. And that was really my main driving interest in the Rodecaster Pro, was simplifying my workflow. So when I was recording into the H4n, it records to an SD card. I was putting the SD card into my computer, loading it up in GarageBand, cutting out bits and pieces of the podcast that were kind of mistakes or that I didn't want, and then adding in, you know, the intro song and the outro song, and then exporting it and then uploading it to Anchor to send out to all of the podcast platforms. My podcast editing is pretty simple, but even that process took a bit of time. And since I like to make as many videos as I can, and these take a long time to film and edit, and I'm busy at work, I didn't want to take on another project that was going to be something else that I had to spend a ton of time editing and putting together. And that's where the Rodecaster Pro came in. And basically the Rodecaster Pro takes all of these different pieces of equipment and puts them into one device. It records internally to a micro SD card, but you can also have a USB cable plugged into a computer if you want to record directly into a computer. But the beauty of this device is that you don't have to do that. It has 4 channels, 4 XLR channels that you can connect, you know, any XLR mic to. It has great settings that you can go in and dial in the tone for each of those microphones. In fact, actually, I should probably be recording with this right now. So let's plug it in. Let's turn it on. Let's grab a microphone. And one of my favorite things about the Rodecaster Pro is when you're ready to start recording, it has this giant glowing record button that like just begs to be pressed. So if I press that button, now I am recording into the Rodecaster Pro. And I'm using a Rode NTG2 right now that I've borrowed to kind of see which microphones work best before I think about spending any money to get my own nice quality microphones. But the beauty of this device right here is that these 4 channels really let you dial into the sound. So let's see, if I go into this channel here, you can go in and change the sound of your, not the sound of your voice, but the quality of your voice. You can even go in and change, like they have this Aphex processor on board, so you can adjust the bass, you can adjust, the different quality and the different editing of how your sound works. So you can find things that really work to you, to your voice, to the voice of the guest or someone that you have. And then in addition to these 4 XLR channels, it also has a USB channel. It also has a channel to connect a phone, and there's even a Bluetooth channel, so you can connect a phone, computer, tablet via Bluetooth and play music that way, or play sound effects. You can do phone calls really easily. So if you're looking for a way to bring phone calls into a podcast, this does it right away. It also has something that I've often struggled with, which is headphone amps. So there are 4 headphone channels in this Rodecaster Pro, and each one has independent volume, so I can adjust the level of my headphones, and if I have up to 3 other people, we can adjust the level of their headphones as well. And then it has these buttons right here, which almost look like some kind of DJ console, and it comes with a lot of like cheesy sounds pre-programmed into it, like, why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. There we go. Or, if I make a bad joke. But through your computer, you can very easily drag in any other sounds that you want to these sound pads. It's like the simplest interface. You just drag sounds over. They can be any length, so you can play music cues, you can play interviews, clips, you can do everything all in one. So for example, I just play my intro music. And then when I'm ready, I can fade it out and start talking and be like, whoa, what's up? This is my podcast. That's not how I talk on my podcast. It's just a thing, and I talk about all my different stuff. And then when I make really good points, I can add in like, oh my God. I don't have a lot of crazy sound effects on the podcast. And then I can talk for as long as I want. I can mix in different channels, mix in different levels. And then when I'm ready to go, I can just cue the outro song, bring in the levels as I go, like, oh, thanks for listening, goodbye, blah, 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 blah. And then when that's done, I just hit record, turn it off, and then that's it. The first time that I used this on one of my podcasts, the episode was up and available within 12 minutes of me finishing recording, which was just fantastic. So I absolutely loved that. So that's really why this has become one of my favorite devices, is because it gets the technology out of the way and just lets you focus on the thing that you're trying to make. So I do have my little list of pros and cons that I've made about what I like and what I don't like about this. And let me tell you, the pros far outweigh the cons. The biggest pro, obviously, is what I just said, simplifying the workflow and just allowing me to do something I'd wanted to do for a long time, produce a podcast, without it really taking any extra time away from my schedule. Another pro is the sound quality. You can go in and adjust and equalize everything. I'm still learning some of the finer points with it. What I really have noticed is that when you're quiet, the unit itself is very, very quiet. There's no background noise, there's no static. Another pro for this, which doesn't really affect me too much, but a lot of people want, is the multi-track ability. So when the Rodecaster first came out, it exported everything as a single .wave stereo file. And people got really upset about that because they wanted to be able to go in and post-process each individual track. And Rode actually addressed that in a firmware update. They updated it, and now it can export up to 14 separate tracks. So it has all of the multi-track options that you need. But for what I'm doing right now, I don't need multi-track. All that I need is that one stereo file. So it makes things very simple for me, but it's nice to know that that extra versatility is always there in case I need it. Another pro, as I mentioned, is all of the different inputs. The back of this thing, there's so many different like ways to incorporate sound and voice and different elements into your podcast. Another pro is the sound pads, because like I said, there's no limit on these. They're super easy to use. Of course, they can be cheesy and corny if you just fill them with a bunch of sound effects. But if you're trying to do what I'm doing and produce a podcast where you don't have to edit it at all when you're done, being able to load up different clips and things like that into these really, really helps. And then you don't have to do any post-production on your podcast. Another thing that I like about this a lot is the overall build quality. The sliders themselves, they have a little bit of like a slight roughness to them. I don't know if you can hear it, but they feel pretty smooth, and the buttons themselves are actually made out of metal, which is really nice. Basically, the whole unit's made out of metal. And then one last pro that I haven't mentioned yet is the interface of the device itself. On the front of the Rodecaster, this right here is a touch display, and normally I get really bummed out when devices try to incorporate touchscreens because they're usually terrible. This is the first touchscreen I've found on a device that really feels and acts just like a phone display. So the way that your smartphone works, where it's really responsive and really smooth and the menus, are very easy to navigate, it's exactly how this works, even without reading the instruction manual, which, by the way, this is the instruction manual. They gave these like giant cue cards with it that explain everything. I have no idea why, but if you want to like learn everything about the Rodecaster, it's all here in these giant instruction manual cards. But you don't really need those because this is so intuitive. And actually, even though I've had this for about a month, I've been waiting to make this video because, as you notice, there's a weird looking thing on this screen, and this was my chance to finally peel off the stuff on the screen. So let's do that real quick. Because as you know, the most satisfying part of getting a new thing is peeling all the plastic protective stuff off of it. Turns out that basically made no sound at all, but ooh, now I have the nice display. So now that being said, even though it's basically perfect for my needs, it's not a perfect device and everybody's needs vary. I've really only found two big cons that I don't like about the product so far. And fortunately, both of them could, I think, be updated with firmware updates in the future. So they might not be cons forever. And neither of them are deal breakers. The first one that I find kind of annoying, when you're recording, you can add markers to your recording really easily. There's a big blue button that pops up on the screen that says add marker, but you can't do any kind of record pause. And when I used to record with the H4n, I did love being able to press pause and then, get a drink of water or answer a phone call or do something in the middle of a podcast. And then the other thing that I don't really like in terms of trying to simplify my workflow is that the only option to record the stereo file is a .wav file. I would love it if I could record directly as an MP3, even though the quality isn't as good, since I use Anchor to distribute my podcast, and I know a lot of people use Anchor or similar service. They only accept MP3 files, and the one thing that slows down my workflow is when I take the memory card out of this, I do need to put the file into either Audition or GarageBand and then convert it to an MP3 and then upload it to Anchor. So that doesn't take very much time at all, but it takes a tiny bit of time, and it's opening up one more application. And if I could really just literally take this out, put it in the computer, upload it directly, and be done with it, oof, that would be awesome. I would really love the ability to do that. With that being said, if you want to start a podcast, don't think that you have to buy a bunch of stuff in order to do that. If you want to start a podcast, the only thing that you need to do is start a podcast. Whatever you've got, whatever kind of recording device that you've got, just record your thoughts, share your perspective, and then upload it. Starting today with maybe slightly less quality is way better than waiting for some distant day in the future that you think you're going to have everything and it's going to be perfect and your ideas are going to be great. Just jump in, do it, and improve along the way. That's the best advice I can give. So as much as I love this, please don't wait until you get one to start your podcast. Start with whatever you've got. So I hope that that was very helpful. I hope that that was informative. and please let me know if you've got any questions. Thanks so much for your time. I'll see you in the next video.